from 7 Every Minute. Hi, this is Jim Cranston from 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com, the podcast and website about reimagining your life. Thanks for joining me today to talk about, well, not getting scammed. And you would say it's a pretty simple topic. You'd be surprised. So let's get started. So if you like what you hear today, please leave a like or tell your friends and send me a message. Thanks for joining me tonight to talk about some classic scams that have been kind of updated for the modern technology landscape. Right now, there have probably already been phone scammers since shortly after there were phones, and I'm sure there were telegraph scammers before that. And if you read about any of the immigration waves into Ellis Island in New York City, there were certainly, and likely probably always have been, trust scammers where they establish a trust and then use that to take money from somebody. Certainly scams have been documented back as far as the Roman and Greek empires, actually. And Aristotle in 66 BC was writing accounts about ways people were scamming each other, and they've been documented in Egypt in 525 BC. But all of those had one thing in common. The communications was either face-to-face or up until the 1960s had other people involved in completing that whole contract. Because remember, back, telephone operator, you wanted to make a call, telephone operator go, where are you calling to? I'm calling to California. And they would connect it. And certainly international calls were like that for sure. You'd get an international operator, they verify your identity. That all changed in the 60s, right? All of a sudden now you had anonymous calls, you could direct dial easily within all the continental United States, fairly easily within North America, and pretty easily around the world. So it just kind of changed the way the whole thing's happened, and suddenly you could be very anonymous in all that you did. Finally, enter the internet now with near instant worldwide connectivity, communications, video sometimes, and of course, the criminals adapted to the new capabilities and really sharpened their skills. But we're all too smart and too sophisticated for that, right? We wouldn't get scammed. Actually, no. A lot depends upon what's called social engineering. We talked about that before. And with social engineering, it's really kind of establishing either a bond, a personal bond, or plausible context around the reason for the call. So recently, given my age, what this whole channel is about. We focus a lot on people who are further along in life. I get fairly regular calls asking, did I get my new Medicare card? Or similarly saying, hey, can I just confirm my Medicare plan for them? They want to make sure everything's okay. And my immediate response is, are you calling from the U.S. government Medicare department? Now, since most of these calls have to do with U.S. Medicare by U.S. companies, and they're probably originating in the United States, and they're trying to trick me into switching into a different Medicare plan is the intent of these calls. And because they're in the U.S., they can be personally liable for a felony charge for impersonating a government entity. And so they usually admit that, no, they're not from Medicare, and in which case I just hang up. But those are the easy ones. I also get a lot of other messages and requests to connect via all the popular messaging apps. I get, professional scammers, I'm sure of that by the way that the tone of the message goes. And I've been contacted, via text message, via LinkedIn, Telegram, Facebook messages, Instagram, WhatsApp, Picket, you name it, no channel is safe. These people, the professional scammers, are often controlled by another government. Very often they're held in compounds, either in Southeast Asia or West Africa, and they want all your money and anything they can get as a loan. They just want to absolutely get everything because they're often held against their wills, and either they or their families are threatened with violence if they don't do a good job. They have no interest in you at all other than as a source of money to prevent more violence in their lives. They also have a huge support network of fake websites, fake apps, and they especially prey on the elderly and the lonely. Remember the social engineering part of it. They call them and say, oh, I know what it's like not to have anybody to talk to. You go, oh, somebody who understands me. Just always stay aware. More importantly, they're very well versed in overcoming objections, and they have scripts to keep things moving, the conversation moving along in the direction they want. And often they make it seem as they're kind of working together with the victim towards making, a life together or a goal together, or think about this, we can save money for a vacation together. How fun would that be? We could get together. We'll meet in Asia, we'll meet somewhere, and they'll buy the tickets. Send me the money, we'll buy the tickets. It just goes on and on. The whole practice, rather poetically, is called pig butchering. How very nice. And you can look it up on the internet and you will find many examples, including IC3, which is the FBI's department dealing with that particularly. But like I mentioned, I get WhatsApp messages and text messages and all those things, Instagram requests from women looking to introduce themselves to me. Now, truthfully, I'm not that amazing a person that an attractive, independently wealthy, 30-some-year-old Asian PhD who now just happens to live without, working in Paris wants to introduce herself to me. And these are the sorts of things, I get a lot of these on LinkedIn because LinkedIn has more professional information. And so they look, my profile fits someone who they might be interested in trying to scam. And I'm surprised actually, LinkedIn's gotten a little better very recently, but there was a period a couple months ago where I'd get almost one a day. And it was typically like former perfume salesman retired, or head of international marketing at a bank, looking for or like things that are unique in your profile. All these things that have a little hook saying, "Oh, I'm interested in you," but I'm somebody you wouldn't normally be able to talk to, sort of thing. And it's very carefully structured to try and hook people in. But I'll almost guarantee that my age, probably my income, my marital status, and probably much, much more are all available on the dark web. And they're probably, many of those things are already known to the caller. As a side note, I'm considering signing up for one of these identity removal services. It turns out a friend of mine did it. It's amazing. You look up him and his family, there's nothing. They have the sale of the house, because that's a public record, and that's it. None of the names of the kids, none of the names of anything, not where he works, not where he worked, nothing. All that other stuff is gone. They really do work, but more on that to come another time. I have to try and research a few of them and see which one looks like the best deal and which ones are the most effective. But so, if any of your social media accounts have ever been hacked, the caller may also have that information at their disposal too, so they can already let it slip out, the kind of like, oh, I adore sipping wine at sunset on the beach, or whatever else you may have ever posted about. They truly are a professional operation. They truly are very slick. And this person you're talking to, especially if you're texting to them, probably is not the gender they identified with. They're probably just a professional and they got a name and they have a script they follow. And they probably really aren't real people. So, to go back a few years, these aren't the so-called Nigerian princesses looking to move $10 million if only somebody could lend them $10,000 to pay for the bank transfer. These operators are very professional. They're professional in their design and they're brutal in their implementation. Last year, these scammers, in the pig butchering as it's called, successfully stole an estimated, actually not last year, 2022, $2.57 billion, that's billion with a B, in 2022, just in crypto. And in 2023, they stole an estimated $12.5 billion in 1 year. This is big business, and it's well funded. There's a lot of psychology behind it. Now, that's a lot of scamming. And since they try to pre-qualify their victims, they really do. It's not the poor lady down the street that lost her $1,000 in savings or $500 in savings. It's typically older, often single, people that have wealth. One case I was reading about was a 75-year-old professional retired man in the Midwest who ultimately lost over $715,000, including all his stocks, bonds, other investments, plus was talked into taking out a $45,000 bank loan and a $212,000 home equity loan. His total losses were $716,212. Ouch. Why would he do that? In part because the fake trading app that he was talked into loading and using and sending his money to showed that he and his honey had well over $1.5 million in their original investment account. And this is before he had to put in almost $300,000 in fees and stuff, fees and various charges to try and get his money back out. So he'd put in, I don't know, $600,000, and between the two of them, they already made $300,000 or $400,000. So it's kind of, this is great. Obviously, there was never any money in any account. But, you know, and this is an important side note. He was living with his partner of 40 years, but said they had kind of drifted apart. So not only did the savings disappear, but the debt-free house now had an almost $250,000 home equity line of credit loan on it. So anything she had for retirement in common with him was destroyed as well. We'll get back to that. Back to the psychology part of it. He got hooked after that initial investment of his when he saw the big apparent growth in their savings account. Of course, that account never existed. But he put in $100,000. He said, and I put in another $100,000 too. How much do we have? $300,000. Oh my gracious, dear, we already made $50,000 each. So he became psychologically and emotionally invested in the outcome. So now he's kind of like, this is like a gambler with a gambling addiction. Well, I won one. I can't quit now because now I'm on a roll. And it's all, this whole time, she was also coaching him to make it all seem easy and exciting, like almost guaranteed. So when she texted with the big new opportunity, heck, he'd be a fool not to go for the easy money, right? Then, when the problems began, trying to get some of the money back out, he panicked. And she kept saying, oh, well, you know, there's a problem. Here, I need some more money for this. Here, they want a fee for this. And my account right now, I just changed countries. You know, I can't get my money. Give this, we'll pay it back out of the profits. And he just started throwing more and more money into the pit on the promise of getting it back, you know, back half of that non-existent $1.5 million of money in the account. It was all orchestrated, even with the occasional video chat, because they also keep women at the compounds for video shots. And the entire process, from start to finish, was a very carefully processed script. His bank even repeatedly cautioned him against it, but they cannot stop you from taking your own money. Plus, she always had things for him to say to the bank to get around the objections. Well, if they said that, say this to them. The moral of the story is, even if you think you're pretty savvy and subtle, totally sophisticated, as always, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. The professional scammers have become very good, very, very good. They use the dark web extensively. They find out information that shouldn't be public. They trade in personal information from your account. Has any of your social media accounts have ever been compromised? Anything you said in that time period is probably available for purchase. And they're very well versed in making themselves seem appealing to you. Never, ever just send money to somebody you just met on the web. If you feel you must send something, run it through some standard payment service that at least have some sort of tracking. If the standard payment services are not acceptable to your new friend, that's a huge red flag. If they claim they live in California, only send it to a Western Union office in California. It could still be a scam, but at least there'll be a photo of the pickup. If any financial opportunity seems too good to be true, run away from it as fast as you can. If you think your partner, and this is kind of turning it around to the other side of the way that story I read about, if you think your partner, spouse, whatever, may be involved in such a scam, confront them. Lock the accounts if it's, you know, it may sound harsh, but who knows? The psychology of these people is extraordinary, and they will belittle people. They will encourage them to do whatever they have to do to work them, to get them to just extend themselves until there's nothing more they can get. These people are experts in the total psychology of fraud. I mentioned in the past how a friend of mine had her Facebook account hijacked, and the scammers quickly read through her history, all the messages from the past couple of months, and then immediately contacted her friends and concocted a story that I was in the hospital and she needed cash, and they managed to grab a couple $1,000s in an hour or two. Do not underestimate their determination to defraud. They're quick, they're good, they're professional, and they have a lot of very well-rehearsed scripts to coach people along. So be safe in all you do, and if you do get an unsolicited invite from your dream mate, be really careful it doesn't turn into a nightmare. So that's it for the evening. I know it seems like one of those things like you would never fall for and I would never fall for, but again, the criminal elements behind these scamming operations are very, very professional and very well versed in what they do. Even what starts out as kind of a casual online friendship can be turned around into something where you think you're helping a friend out, but their only concern is to defraud you. That doesn't mean you should be hard-hearted, But do be cautious. And, you can always verify things with one or more phone calls, video on, to get a better feel for the context. Not pictures, live video. If they're supposed to be wealthy and living in Paris, but they're calling you from some dim room with other speakers in the background, it doesn't add up. And it doesn't have to be one call, it can be multiple calls. And if the person doesn't look quite the same every time, take note of that. Just use your head, be extremely careful. So, your homework, always optional, is to think about how many unsolicited invitations have you gotten through various social media channels and texts and all that, and how do you handle them? Extra points if you think about any of the characteristics struck you as odd or unusual, big difference in age between you and them, odd backstory. Write them down, kind of start a collection. It gets pretty humorous over time. So, as always, remember, UKR7.com and the war in Ukraine, wars in the Mideast, lots of things going on. And of course, not only just for Ukraine, World Central Kitchen, they operate in numerous disaster zones around the world, providing food, typically from local vendors. So it helps the economy both ways. It gets people fed and also helps the local businesses. If you can and you're able, please consider donating to either or both of those. But like I've said many times, if you want to donate locally, that's effective as well. And if you're not in a position where you want to donate, something as simple as a smile to someone you meet in the street can just change their day, change the world for someone. That helps too. Anytime you live outside yourself, it changes your perspective on the world. One of the best ways to care for yourself always is to care for others. So if you can and you're able, check out one of the links. Just make somebody's day a little bit better. As always, thank you for stopping by. If you found something interesting or useful, please pass it along, and please hit that like button. If not, please drop me a comment as to what you'd like to hear. Have a great week. Remember to live the life that you dreamed of, because that's the path to true contentment. Love and encouragement to everyone. See you next week on 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com. Thank you.